we are going to be reviewing participial phrases today. You did learn about these last year at the end of 7th grade, but you might need a refresher, so we're going to review them. To begin with, you need to know what a participle is. So participle is one of a group of tools we use, right, syntactical tools, called verbals. So for participles, a participle has the qualities of a verb. So when you look at it, you're like, that's a verb, hey, but then it acts like an adjective. So it has both. It has the qualities of a verb and the qualities of an adjective, which is important because there are other verbals that have qualities of verbs and then qualities of other parts of speech. So participles are the ones that look like verbs but are actually adjectives. So a verb acting like an adjective. And it can be present, and you know it's a present participle when you see this ing, or past with ed, d, en, or t. So there are lots of different endings you can look for, but the most important part, and this is what you have to remember, it modifies a noun. Okay, that's what adjectives do, they modify nouns. So when you see lost, the hiker consulted his map and compass. Lost is modifying the noun hiker. It's describing him, right? Or her. Him. Now, it uses this T ending, so it's in the past tense, right? And if I were to give you this sentence on its own, the hiker consulted his map and compass, and ask you to add a participle, you would know to use a past because consulted has an ed on it, right? Moving on. A participial phrase is just the participle itself plus the modifiers that go with it. So for instance, we have singing softly. Singing is the actual participle, but singing softly is the participle phrase. Okay, and it is describing the little girl. Singing softly, the little girl patiently waited for her mother to finish shopping. Similarly, we have that same sentence, but now we've added a prepositional phrase to it, right? Lost in the woods. So lost in the woods working all together as a participial phrase, but lost is the actual participle. And again, it's describing the hiker. See, this is pretty simple. If you can take a verb and put ing, ed, ent on it, and use it to describe a noun, it's going to act like a participle. It's that simple. Now, these can go in the beginning, middle, or end. Beginning, middle, or end of a sentence, just like the other phrases that we've learned about, right? At the beginning of a sentence, you have your participle, rowing, and then you've made it into a participial phrase, rowing frantically. The crew team raced to beat the opponent. Now notice here, there's a comma after my participial phrase, separating it from the noun it's describing. If I put it in the middle, I'm going to give it 2 commas. Gosh, this looks a lot like other things we've looked at in the past, doesn't it? So here, rowing is the actual participle, and rowing frantically is the participial phrase, and it still describes the crew team, right? You can put it at the end of the sentence, but then there are special rules. So if you look, it has the same participial phrase. So we have our rowing in both of these. It's the same sentence. I've just moved rowing frantically to the end. And I've changed something. In one of them, I gave it a comma, and one I didn't. So if I have things at the end of the sentence together, no comma, right? So there's no comma here. No comma, right there, just like that. Pretend that says comma. I know it doesn't quite look like it. Then, rowing frantically describes the noun closest to it, okay? So the crew team raced to beat the opponent rowing frantically. So who was rowing frantically? The opponent was. That's what the participial phrase is describing. However, when I put the comma here, the crew team raced to beat the opponent rowing frantically. Now rowing frantically describes my crew team. Confusing, right? So this comma actually tells us a lot. The comma determines which one it is that we're looking at. Okay, who does the participial phrase describe when you have it at the end of the sentence? This rule only applies to the end. Keep that in mind. All right, so here's my example. The student / realized she left her research paper on the printer at home. So I have the student overwhelmed with a terrible feeling. So overwhelmed is my participle and overwhelmed with a terrible feeling is my participial phrase. Realized she left her research paper on the printer at home, and I'll draw my arrow back to the student. Now you're going to do the same thing for 3 examples. Slash, the team celebrated the championship win. Make sure you write a participial phrase and not just a participle. We're looking for that phrase. I want to see if you can use it with modifiers. A teacher, slash, must always remember to remain calm in an emergency. The boy smiled at the girl. Remember, this one's at the end, right? So you have to be very careful with your commas. Best of luck. I know you're going to do great. And don't forget to turn in so we can take a look at it.